welcome to the Catholic Curriculum Corporation's When Faith Meets Pedagogy Conference 2025. My name is Julie Webster, and I am a co-chair of the WFMP Liturgy. On behalf of Catherine Stevenson, WFMP Chair of the Board of Representatives, and Ab Falcone, Executive Director of the Catholic Curriculum Corporation, I welcome you to this year's conference. Today, we gather as a Catholic educational community from across the province of Ontario and beyond to discover what it means for each of us to be stewards of hope, sharing our time, our talent, and our treasure. Each of you gives so generously of your time and your gifts and your presence. You are truly stewards of hope in a world that so deeply needs it. This conference is a time to pause, to be renewed, to pray, learn, reflect, and reconnect with one another. Together, we walk as pilgrims of hope, inspired by the Holy Spirit, committed to the mission of Catholic education, and open to the grace that flows when faith meets pedagogy. Our hope is that this conference refreshes your spirit and strengthens the bonds that unite us in purpose and in hope. This morning's land acknowledgement shows recognition of and respect for Indigenous peoples in both the past and the present. Today, we extend our gratitude as we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Let us now listen to the voices of students as they share their land acknowledgement.
The land we walk on belongs to the Creator. Earth does not belong to humanity, but rather humanity is a part of the earth.
The land was created to be enjoyed by all living beings, a principle reflected in the dish with one spoon covenant, taking only what we need to preserve our earth for future generations, leaving some for others as a sign of our respect and caring, and keeping it clean by revitalizing the land to sustain generations to come.
All Toronto Catholic District School Board properties are situated on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat peoples. We recognize that the land covered by Treaty 13 is held by the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
We also listen to the echoes of their prayers to the Creator and respect the beauty of Mother Earth while striving to learn and draw wisdom from First Nations, Inuit, and Métis traditions.
I would like to thank our incredible When Faith Meets Pedagogy Planning Committee and all the presenters who have worked tirelessly to bring this conference to you. I also want to extend our gratitude to the exceptional WFMP musicians under the direction of Claudia Farrow and Jamie Marr, who will lead us in glorious song today. We also thank our amazing AV team under the leadership of Boris Hoffman and his team members, Ed, Joseph, Peter, and Annie, for all their work behind the scenes to make this conference such a success. At this time, we also want to extend warm greetings to each member board and partners in Catholic education you see represented by the banners to my left. And for all other members of our Catholic education community, we welcome you. We are so grateful that you have joined us. I now invite Ab Falcone, Executive Director of the Catholic Curriculum Corporation, to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Julie. Let us take a quiet moment to center ourselves in God's presence. As stewards of hope, we are called to share our time, talent, and treasure in service of the gospel and the mission of Catholic education. As we open our hearts, let us turn to God in prayer, asking for the grace to bring hope to all that we encounter. Let us begin in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Loving and merciful God, we thank you for the gift of Catholic education and for the call to be stewards of hope, sharing our time, our talent, and our treasure in service to others. In this sacred time together, may we pray and learn with open hearts, renew our friendships, deepen our understanding, and awaken us to the limitless love and mercy that you pour out upon us. Holy Spirit, fill this conference with your presence. Stir in us new energy and a rekindled passion for the gospel. Let us leave here not just inspired, but transformed. May we be bold in faith, rich in mercy, and generous in love, true agents of hope in our schools, our communities, and in our world. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ, our teacher and our hope. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. And I'm not sure who always thinks it's a good idea to give me a microphone. It's not always. But I just do want to reiterate Julie's wonderful welcome to each of you to join us today. It's one of those incredible things that we've got in Ontario in Catholic education. This is the largest Catholic education conference in the country. So we're blessed. We're blessed to serve in Catholic education in Ontario. We're blessed to welcome Jesus into our hallways, our classrooms, our offices, wherever it is you might work. We're blessed to serve the students that we serve and the families that we serve each and every day. So we just want to reiterate, thank you for choosing to spend this time with us away from those things. Please use it as a time to refresh, to renew, and to go back re-energized to a couple Blue Jays wins and to serving your students on Monday. Have a great day, everybody.
So I invite Deacon Ray Frendo to join me as we unpack this year's theme and reflect on the visual landscape behind us. We are so proud of our Stewards of Hope sharing our time, talent, and treasure theme this year. Time, talent, and treasure are gifts freely given to us by God, and we are called to share them generously and responsibly. Living this way allows us to see life as a gift and become true stewards of hope, finding peace and joy in service.
Time calls us to recognize God's presence in our daily lives and use our moments in service to God and others. Talent invites us to discover and grow the unique gifts God has given us, using them not just for ourselves, but for the good of all. Treasure reminds us to share our material resources to support the church's mission and help those in need. Gathering as educational pilgrims from across the province, let us embrace a spirit of hope that inspires us as disciples of Christ to unite as one faith community. May this opportunity help us to be grateful for the gifts of time, talent, and treasure entrusted to us by God.
So I invite you to take a look at the scene behind us, which is inspired by our conference poster for this year. First, we look to the Canadian maple tree with its deep roots, changing seasons, and enduring strength. It offers a powerful symbol of what it means to be stewards of hope. And just as the maple tree stands tall through every season, weathering the harsh winters and blooming with beauty in spring, so too are we called to remain grounded in faith and resilient in the face of challenges. Its roots, etched with an anchor of hope, remind us to stay anchored to what roots us, our relationship with God, our call to serve others, and the enduring truths of the gospel. The maple leaf is recognized around the world as a symbol of Canada, as it speaks to unity, identity, and peace. As stewards of hope, we are invited to reflect the same spirit, offering shelter, strength, and the steady presence of hope in our schools and our communities. And just as the tree gives of itself through its sap, its shade, and its beauty, we are called to share our time, talent, and treasure generously. In doing so, we become living signs of hope, deeply rooted in faith and wide-reaching in love. Let the maple tree remind us that hope is not just a feeling, but a commitment to endure, to grow, and to give, anchored always in Christ, our sure and steady hope.
As we continue to journey together in this Jubilee year of hope, we are reminded of the holy doors that were opened by the late Holy Father Pope Francis to usher in the Jubilee year last December. This year, the doors to the right of us are adorned with student artwork from our partner boards. Each panel is inspired by our conference theme, Stewards of Hope, sharing our time, talent, and treasure. Finally, the treasure chest that you see just to the right of the tree contains maple leaves decorated by our young people, sharing examples of their time, talent, and treasure with us. We invite you to come and take a closer look at these incredible masterpieces over the course of the conference.
You are all invited to journey through this conference with us as stewards of hope, nurturing the relationships that strengthen our shared mission. Our featured speaker this year, Danielle Campo-McLeod, will stir your spirit and leave you inspired to seek out the moments you feel God's presence in your life. We are honored to have His Excellency Bishop Fabro, Bishop of London, to celebrate the Eucharist with us later this morning at 11:30 here in the main ballroom. I now invite Rafe Sharples, President of CPCO, to introduce our keynote this morning.
Thank you, Julie, and good morning, everyone. As educators, we can relate to light bulb moments when a re-diagnosis for a student steers us in a new direction that allows us to realign our support for them so that they can reach their full potential. Oftentimes, the fatigue and frustration that they came to class with is replaced with a renewed perspective that when coupled with their ever-present dedication and determination, they reach greater heights. For others, like today's keynote speaker, that re-diagnosis does not come until much later in life. But that didn't keep her from building a resiliency and competitiveness that saw her win numerous medals and set 8 world records as a Canadian Paralympian. Her positivity, can-do attitude, and commitment to overcoming any obstacle in front of her has empowered her to advocate for disability rights and to help individuals reach deeper into themselves to achieve greater personal success. As a recipient of the Order of Ontario, the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal, the Terry Fox Humanitarian Award, and a Canadian National Hero Honor, her efforts clearly go above and beyond. And yet, it is her positivity through adversity, combined with a faith-filled, modest approach to life as a devoted mother, that make her a true steward of hope. Please join me in welcoming Danielle Campo-McLeod, whose passion, resilience, and life-changing experiences are sure to captivate your attention and inspire your commitment to seeing and embracing the whole child.
I always pick the one that doesn't work. Hello, good? Yeah, perfect, okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here with you this morning. I have a suitcase packed of like really cute dresses and shirts, and then I got here to the conference and I saw this Toronto Jays shirt hanging in the gift shop, and I was like, well, duh, I have to wear that today. So go Jays, go. We have had an incredible journey with the Youth Forum starting us off yesterday, and those amazing kids coming with their spirit and their faith, and it really just filled my bucket yesterday of being like, wow, there's so much more out there, and how excited I am for our youth to go and lead and be their own stewards of hope. And so as I was thinking about sharing my story again this morning and taking you on my journey, I started to get a little bit nervous inside, because I said, so many people came up to me yesterday and said, oh, I was there for the youth conference and I loved your story. And I thought, oh, that's awesome, but oh no, you're gonna be there also tomorrow and hear it again. And so I started to get a little bit nervous. I was like, how boring is that, going to a conference where you're hearing the same thing over and over? And then I thought, wait, every Sunday we go to Mass and we hear the same story over and over, right? Sometimes out of that story I get, oh, thank God my kids made it to this part without throwing the gummies at the people in front of us, or why are they crushing the goldfish already, or asking why is that guy on the cross still on a timeout. That literally happened last week, where my 6-year-old was like, Mom, I know that's Jesus, why is he still up there on a timeout? So I was like, okay, well, we don't do timeouts in our house on a cross, so I'm not sure where you got that. So my goal for you today, and my prayer for you today, is that if you have heard my story, like poor Stephen Blair at the back, who's probably heard it 15 times now, if you have heard it, it's that God gives you whatever you need to take out of this story today. So many incredible people yesterday connected with me and shared with me what this journey meant to you and how you connected it to your life. I met an incredible guy who has just a 2.5-year-old at home, and his wife is navigating all of that. So getting whatever God needs you to hear out of this story as we go on my journey. I'm really excited to share this journey with you. For me, my journey started at the age of 2. Now we backtrack a little bit to give you a little bit of background. When I came into my family, my mom shares the story that she screamed so loud, already having 2 boys at home. When they handed her that pink blanket, she was so excited to be bringing a daughter home to my older brothers, who are 5 and 6 years older. And we were going to go live that normal Ontario life. My brothers played hockey and baseball, and she was bringing this little girl home, and we were going to just carry on with that normal life. As I started to reach my developmental milestones, my mom started to notice that things were a little bit different. I would take a few steps and I'd fall, or we would go for a walk at the end of the day and I'd lift my hands up to ask to be carried. And so my mom thought, well, this is the difference between boys and girls. My boys are running down the street and playing in the mud and picking up sticks and bugs, and so she's just going to want to be carried and a little bit more spoiled, and well, she's the only girl, so I'm going to do that. And so she'd carry me to the stop sign. But then as she noticed that the falls started to come more often, and the fatigue didn't quite match what an 18-month-old would go through, she decided to make an appointment with our doctor. Now, as many of us wives do, my dad is flat-footed, so my mom blamed it on her husband. She also must be flat-footed. We'll go to this doctor's, you'll put some orthotics in her shoes, and away we'll go. And my mom said, we're gonna go to this doctor's appointment, and we're going to find out that you need orthotics, and then we're gonna go buy some really new, great pink shoes. And so I was so excited going into this appointment. We're going shopping after this. And so I was confidently walking into the appointment. That family doctor said, yeah, something's not quite right, and we're gonna make an appointment for the specialist. And so my mom left that doctor's appointment thinking, something's not quite right, and we're gonna have a specialist appointment. Now we know how our healthcare system is, so you go to a family doctor and you don't go to the specialist the very next day. It's months and months and months as you wait for this specialist appointment. And luckily we didn't have Google back then like we do now, but she started to sit in that and started to really go, I can't wait months and months for this. I can't wait until the new year to find out what could this be. I thought this was orthotics. So with a lot of persistent phone calling, to this day, some of those nurses still tell me, oh, your mom is one of the most persistent people we know. She was able to get me in to the specialist down the 401 to London. We would go, still expecting to go buy those new shoes after a quick appointment that said, yep, she needs orthotics. We walked into this specialist's clinic with many different children with many different disabilities. My mom and dad thinking, nope, this isn't her story. This is something very, very minimal, and we're going to get out of here really quick. The doctor at the specialist had me walk down the hallway, and as I was walking, strutting my stuff, feeling all proud that I knew I had this and I was acing this walking test, I walked back and his face was just so stoic. And he looked at my mom and he looked at my dad and he said, this child has muscular dystrophy. I want those of you that are parents in the room to imagine that moment. This child has muscular dystrophy. My parents' world shattered into a million pieces. The first place they went to was the Jerry Lewis telethon and how kids with muscular dystrophy don't survive. And what would this life be like? And how would we go through this moment? And what are we going to do? And all those racing thoughts of how do you take a life-changing diagnosis and leave this office and be okay? And so together we walked out, me smiling, excited that I thought things were great and we're off. And my mom started to pray the Our Father. And in the parking lot, before she got to the car, she got to the line, thy will be done. And she remembers that line being her strength in that moment. Her strength of, I'm just going to get into the car. Not, I'm going to know what's coming in 6 months from now, or I'm going to know what's coming in a year from now. But this line, thy will be done, will simply help me just get in the car. And so off we went back down the 401 to Windsor to go and try and rebuild that somehow normal life. My older brothers played hockey, like I said, so I wanted to learn how to play hockey. I learned how to skate. I got into one of my hockey games. I got the puck on my stick. I shot that puck. I scored on my own net. I looked up to my parents at them like, wrong net. And I thought, okay, maybe hockey's not going to be my career. As I continued to live with muscular dystrophy, there were many scary doctor's appointments. When you have muscular dystrophy, it's not a diagnosis that says your ankles are affected or your arms are affected. It is, we're not sure what muscles are affected. So you have to remember your heart is a muscle, your lungs are a muscle. So every cold, everything was very scary for my parents of, is her heart affected? Is her lungs affected? And how do we keep pushing on? After my diagnosis, I needed to have a surgery in my left hip that left me in a body cast that was up from just under my chest all the way down to my ankles to try and realign my hips the way that they needed to go. And my parents had heard some noise in the other room, and I was learning actually how to walk in this body cast because my brothers kept getting everything they wanted faster because they weren't in a body cast. And so my mom called London and said, she's walking in this body cast. Like, should I stop her from walking? And the doctor said to my mom on the phone, Miss Campo, I've met your daughter. There's no stopping her. So no, if she wants to walk in this body cast, let her walk in this body cast. It's not going to do any harm. And so my parents began their own journey, deepening their faith of having to really surrender it to God, what it meant to have a child with a disability. Hours and hours of painful physiotherapy. Now, I didn't share with this with the youth yesterday because I felt it might not be appropriate, but at the time that I was growing up going through this physiotherapy, I would beg my parents, don't take me to the physiotherapists. Please don't take me. And so they said, well, you gotta go, we gotta stretch these muscles. My amazing grandfather would go with me and he would sit on the bed while they were stretching my muscles, and he actually would cry more than I was crying as we were going through these difficult moments. But it's what we were told we had to do. It's what we were told we needed to do. And so we kept going through these moments together. And then my parents said, we need to find a different way. We need to strengthen these muscles in a different way, in a way that doesn't hurt like this so much on land, in a way that it doesn't cause her to scream out in pain and each and every day. We are going to take care of these not so good muscles, but we really need to focus on the good muscles and what the good muscles can do. And that became our mantra for the rest of my journey. We focus on the good. We take care of what's not so good, but we're going to focus on the good. And so we found the water. I went in the water for a form of physiotherapy, and I loved being in the water. When I was in the water, there wasn't anything I couldn't do. I could do everything that the other kids around me at school can do. We're all in the schools. We know how mean kids can be when kids are different. Kids were not very nice because I couldn't run and I couldn't jump and I couldn't do the other things that the kids could do. And so when I'd go to school, it would be a very scary place. It would be a difficult place to show up each and every day just wanting to be like the other kids. But what happened for me was the little glimmers of hope each and every day in the incredible teachers that I had. I had an amazing teacher that came up with the idea that if I had the job of banging the chalk brushes and getting the dust out of the chalk brushes, I would be last on purpose to get outside. So it wouldn't be the kids getting to pick on me. What an incredible teacher that went alongside what I needed. Also, what a funny situation. We don't know if my lungs are affected, and I'm the kid banging the chalk brushes. However, good news, lungs are not affected. And so I would have these little glimmers of hope. Or a teacher that as I would get a little bit older would say, you know what? That math textbook is really heavy. Why don't I give you 2 textbooks? I know I'm not supposed to assign 2 textbooks out to a kid. Why don't you leave one at home and have one here in the classroom? That way your backpack is a little bit lighter. Or when stranger danger presentations came into our school, I will never forget one of my incredible teachers coming up to me and not needing me to speak words, but saying, Danielle, what is going on? What's going on with your body right now? Because something in that presentation has made you tight and scared, and let's talk about that. Now, I was able to say to this incredible teacher, they say you have to run. No matter what, run. And I can't run. So what if I'm the one that's going to get kidnapped? What if I'm the one that can't run away? And that teacher's saying, well, then maybe you don't walk to school. Let's sit down with your parents and figure out how can we get you on a bus to school. Only to go home to my older brothers who would say, oh yeah, man, that white van with the kidnapper, he's getting you first, even if you're on a bus. I still to this day am terrified of the white van that drives by the park. Thanks, Kenny. And so no matter how difficult these moments would get with kids being mean or not knowing what muscles were affected and what muscles were going to give out, I'd go back to the pool each and every day and I'd get a little bit better and a little bit stronger. And I got to see that maybe it's not hockey that's going to get that competitive drive out of me, but that I really do love swimming. And I love the chance to push these good muscles as far as they could go. And so I joined our local summer swim club and I started to swim and to get to join the races and the adrenaline of racing. And I swam my first summer swim meet and I did the 100-meter freestyle, which is just 4 laps of the pool. And secretly behind my back, my mom had went up to the coach and said, she's gonna be way too tired after 1 lap. So bend down and pull her out. So now everybody else has dove in the water with me. They're probably on lap 3 at this time, and I finished lap 1. And he bent down and he said, come on, you can get out. You did a good enough job. And I looked at him and said, good enough? I'm not done. I have 3 more laps to go. And so I finished that race, and every lap he'd bend down and say, come on, get out. And he looked a little more scared each time he bent down. And I remember thinking, what's going on? I later found out he was terrified of my mother and not pulling me out of this water. And so when I touched the wall, I said to him, I did it. My goal was I needed to finish the race. And it was after that swim meet that we sat down as a family and said, I love the water and I want to see what I can do. I joined the Windsor Bulldogs Disabled Sports Club. As my parents are still journeying on their own journey of having a child with a disability and navigating what that would be, I was now on a disabled sports team in Windsor where I would get to go meet other athletes that loved swimming or track or whatever they were doing, and we would get together and train and set our own goals, whatever those goals may be, and I loved it. And I went to my very first disabled sports meet up here in Variety Village, and I got to the swim meet, and I know my mom was feeling a bit uncomfortable, and she was keeping me away from one of the girls in the dressing room, and her name was Ashley, and Ashley was about the same age as me, and my mom kept saying, "Come on, Danielle, just focus over here." And Ashley was really crying because Ashley was in a wheelchair and needed to have some things done so that Ashley could swim in the pool. And so I broke free from my mom, and I went running over to Ashley, and I had my bathing suit and my cap and my goggles. I said to Ashley, "What are you swimming, Ashley?" And she said, "Oh, the 50 freestyle." And I said, "Oh, me too. We'll be in the same race." I looked at her mom and I said, "What are you doing?" And of course, my mom is now mortified in the change room, like, what is happening right here? And her mom said, "Well, I have to do some stuff so that Ashley can go into the water. Ashley doesn't use the bathroom the same way that you do." And I said, "Oh, Ashley, that's great. I know you won't pee in the pool." And it was at that moment that my mom again prayed their Our Father and said, "This time, Lord, just take her, maybe for her embarrassment, but also thy will be done. You have a greater plan here. You have a plan that I need to let go and let God do the plan." I was excited to be getting faster and stronger in the water, so much so that when I would come home from school, my brothers would have their friends waiting in our backyard to race me in our backyard pool. And I would dive in, I would race those older boys. I'd feel so proud that I beat those boys that are 5 and 6 years older than me. They would get out of the pool defeated and hand my brother $5. Like, I still have not seen that money, and I remind them every holiday I'm waiting for my cut from those races. We were sitting at the dinner table one night having dinner, and my older brother made the announcement that he was getting a tattoo. Now, my very Sicilian father just quietly looked up at us and said, "Oh no, there are no tattoos in this family unless you make the NHL for the Toronto Maple Leafs or you go to the Olympics." And I remember thinking, huh. And I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to go to the Olympics." And my dad said, "Oh, shit. You're probably going to get a tattoo." And so I began seriously training and working to that goal of becoming an Olympic athlete for our country. As I understood more about the Olympics and the Paralympics, I set my sight on I was going to go to the Paralympics. Paralympics are parallel to the Olympics. Only difference is those athletes have physical disabilities. And so I set my sights on going to the 2000 Paralympic Games. I was honored at 13 years old to get to travel to Christchurch, New Zealand, and represent our country in my first World Championships. I swam at those World Championships against a girl from Iceland who was 6'2". And in the ready room where you go before you dive into the water, she looked at me and said, "You're so tiny. What are you going to do?" And I was like, oh God, what did I get myself into? And so I said, "Well, I'm going to have fun and I'm going to race." And she said, "And you talk too much." And I thought, well, this is also my game plan. Here's one of my talents. And so I dove into that water and I broke 4 world records and I won 4 gold medals. Thank you. And I secured a spot on our 2000 Paralympic team. But in just grade 8, what happened when I came home from those World Championships that was so incredible is my amazing teachers made me not Danielle, the girl with the disability in our school. They made me Danielle, the world champion. And they lined the hallways with the students singing "I Believe," which was the most awkward moment for a grade 8 student. And as I walked through those hallways, I got to share my medals with the kids. The kids got to reach out and touch my medals. And for that moment, I wasn't Danielle with muscular dystrophy. I was Danielle, the world champion. And we went into an assembly where they said, and they handed me a mic, and they said, "Tell us about New Zealand." And I was like, okay, good thing every one of my grade school report cards says Danielle would do so much better if she just didn't talk so much. I'm going to use that right now. And I got to start to share. And what came out of my mouth was not my own story. It was the message from God. Because what came out of my mouth is that, yeah, sometimes I got bullied by the kids that were actually bullying me were in the audience. And I said, and I know that there's other kids that are actually being bullied. But I know that if you set a goal and you have a dream and you pray really, really hard, that God can make incredible things happen. And God used that diagnosis and that struggle to be able to start to connect to youth, and started my new journey in motion of, after I talked to my school, other schools started calling. And so as I was training for the Paralympic Games, I was also going and sharing my world medals with other students. In 2000, I was honored to be in grade 10 and leave my school to go represent our country in Australia. Sydney, Australia was the best first Paralympics that I could go to. A, because swimming is their national sport, and it was wild and it was crazy. And I got off the airplane to a huge banner rating with my face on it that says, "Our Aussies, are you ready? The Canadians are coming." Nothing gets you more motivated to be like, oh God. And so I had the joy of swimming and representing our country. And I remember opening ceremonies of those Paralympics and getting to be right before they open the door, where we all see on the TV is they announce the country name and you see them walking around the track. What you don't see is all the other countries are all together. And all the other countries are standing in tunnels as you're waiting to go. And I remember looking at my other friends and other teammates, and just before they announced Canada is going to come out and walk, I remember thinking, wow, it was worth that struggle. It was worth those hard moments, because this moment is fantastic. And if I had to go through those difficult moments so that I could enjoy this joy, then that was okay. That was part of my story. They announced Canada. We walked out. I led an entire team of 56 wheelchairs and other people using crutches and walkers, because it's a Paralympics, so we got all kinds of equipment going. I led them off the track the wrong way because I saw my mom, and I went running. If you want to see a media crew freak out, watch a whole Paralympic wheelchair train derail off the track. So they finally got us back online, and we were ready to go to celebrate getting to compete at these Olympics. We all are there as friends and competitors, but after that opening ceremony, flame lights, it's game on, and it means business. I got to the pool the next day, I swam my first race, and I touched second by 1/100th of a second. And I was so excited to be getting this silver medal. I was so excited that I would be standing on the podium. Of course, I was disappointed it wasn't gold, because you never dive in saying, well, I hope I kind of win. So I was really a little bit disappointed, but the emotions of being so excited, of being 15, of living this journey with muscular dystrophy came to me, and I started to cry. And there's a paper in Windsor called the Windsor Star, and they captured this giant close-up of my face, snot coming out, my goggles are off, I'm sobbing, and I thought, oh my God, that is what the grade 12s are gonna see this morning. Not Danielle Campo places silver, they're gonna see snotty, gross grade 10 Danielle on the paper. And so I started to have to go like, and my mom said, no, don't worry, we're a day ahead, they won't even notice. Yeah, okay, whatever, it's a giant picture on the Windsor Star. But I knew I had other races, and I knew I got to use that as a funny motivation. And so my coach said, don't go be that snotty girl again. You get on the top of that podium. And so the next race that I did, I dove in and I won a gold medal and I broke a world record. Thank you. Our dream team relay team dove in. We also broke a world record by 34 seconds, and just this last Paralympic Games, it was finally broken. So we held our world record for over 25 years, which was unbelievable. And then I decided that I had one last race, my favorite race, which is just one lap of the pool, the 50-meter freestyle. And so I dove in, and I'm going to share that race with you today.
The women's S7 50 metres freestyle, a field including Australia's Amanda Fraser. Here again is Jerry Collins.
The lineup now for the women's S7 50 metres freestyle. Amanda Fraser swimming in lane 6 for Australia. Fastest qualifier is Shannon Bethelio from the United States, and Danielle Campo, the world record holder, is in lane 5. Lauren Reynolds of the United States is introduced. Margita Prokanova from Slovakia in lane 2. Kristen Hakonar
That's the
Dottir,
6'2"
who picked up
Iceland
another
girl.
gold medal last night from Iceland. Shannon Bethelio of the United States, fastest qualifier. The world record holder, Danielle Campo, in lane 5. Amanda loving every moment of this huge crowd, and they're going to encourage her all the way. Daniela Pohl from Germany in lane 7, and Hilda Saabes from Norway is in lane 8. Amanda Fraser swam a 36.66 this morning. She's in lane 6. The world record held by Danielle Campo at 34.95. And she's in lane 5. Danielle Campo. Shannon Bethelio, the fastest qualifier, in lane 4 from the United States. Should be another great race. The start was pretty even. Amanda Fraser got away well for Australia. And over on the far side, Kristen Hakonar-Dottir also started well, and so did Margita Prokanova. After about 15 metres, Amanda Fraser is right up there for Australia. It's a terrific battle as usual. Up to the 25 metres they go, and Amanda Fraser is fighting it out with Prokanova on the far side. They're on opposite ends of the pool. Coming through now is Daniela Campo from Canada. Prokanova's still up there. Campo's gone to the lead. Amanda Fraser round about second at the moment. Campo looks like she's going to win the gold for Canada, and Danielle Campo, the world record holder, goes in and wins the gold, a new Paralympic record, 34.98. The silver has gone to Bethelio, and Amanda Fraser's got another bronze for Australia. 2 bronze medals in 2 races for Australia, and Danielle Campo is going crazy.
I love sharing this race, and it's especially special being that it's 25 years ago. But my poor dad hates when I share this race, because my dad and my grandfather and my mom were there, and when I touched the wall and I celebrated, and you hear the commentator say, Danielle Campo is going crazy, I was, because this was the end of the games. I had won a medal with my friend Amanda from Australia, who won a bronze medal. I highly recommend you race against someone from the home country. It made the energy that much more exciting. But what happened was I could see my grandfather and my mom cheering, but I couldn't find my dad, because when I touched the wall, my dad actually passed out. And there is a member from Team Japan actually fanning him, trying to get him up. And so we love to share that moment that, yeah, he actually passed right out. And his dear friend from Japan had to get him ready for the medal ceremony. I remember getting to stand on the podium and holding that gold medal around my neck and hearing our national anthem play, and being able to look down at that gold medal and really feel the struggles that I had gone through, but also really get to feel that joy. I brought those medals home, and I shared those medals at schools. And I had students wear those medals, and I had students pretend to bite those medals. And we walked through with other students getting to be inspired. And one of the greatest things about those talks was about at our last Olympic Games that just passed, I had someone come up to me from Windsor. Her name's Linda Murray, and she's a wrestler. And she said, Danielle, you brought your gold medals in 2000 to my grade 4 class. And I set my goal that day that I was going to go to the Olympics for wrestling. And that was a pretty cool full circle moment, that she heard that message and set her goal to represent our country. I knew I wasn't finished swimming after Australia, and I wanted to continue training, and so I finished high school. I swam in Windsor, and when you're a part of Team Canada, you have to move where your coach goes. So if you're a freestyler and your coach moves to Calgary, well, you're going out to Calgary. Or if you're doing butterfly and your coach is in Hamilton, you're going to Hamilton. So very difficult moment for us as I began to go through school and figure out what am I going to do in university. And my coaches were like, you're not going to class, you're going to swim. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to swim. So everybody would say, oh, I'm going to go get my teaching degree, or I'm going to be a doctor. And I said, I'm going to be a swimmer. And so I swam for the University of Calgary. I had the honor of representing our country again, the 2004 Paralympic Games. And this time I placed fourth, a position I wasn't used to, and one that I would really have to dig down deep of how am I going to get that mindset to do what I need to do and this body to do what I need to do so that I can find my place on the podium. I swam the perfect races in Athens. I couldn't have left any more in the pool. My dive was perfect, my start was perfect, my finish was perfect. Everything I needed the race to be was perfect. And the lesson I learned from these games was that sometimes our absolute very best is not going to measure to the best, but that's okay. Because when I stood on those podiums and held those bronze medals, I had the same pride that I had when I won those gold medals. And when I came back to our incredible community in Windsor, Ontario, so many people were there to celebrate those bronze medals like they were to celebrate the golds. And so I began sharing a new story. I began doing talks and sharing a new story about the fact that sometimes we are going to give our very best. We have all had those moments where we leave everything in the classroom or we leave everything in that lesson plan and it doesn't turn out to be the best. But we know that we did our very best. And so that became my message that I would share with people as I continued to swim and to travel around speaking and continued to decide what was going to be next. In 2006, I decided I would retire after earning 8 world records and 17 Paralympic and international world championship medals. And I was so excited to come home, and I was sitting with my parents at the dinner table, and I said, you know, I'm really excited about everything that's happened. I'm really grateful for this career, and I think it's time that I'm going to take a little break to figure out what's next. So I'm going to hang up the swimming goggles for a little bit. At this time, I was swimming 7 hours a day. Training was intense, and I thought, I'll take a little break. And so I took a little break, and I looked up at my parents, and I said, so like maybe I'll travel or I'll do something. And my parents stopped, and they said, or you'll go to school. And I thought, I guess that was a clear direction for me. And so I applied to the University of Windsor and I finished my social work degree. And I was really honored to have this career to walk alongside people. I had spent my whole life setting goals and having a dream, and I got my social work degree and I started working in child welfare, where I really got to thank God for the treasure of my beautiful family, where I really got to walk alongside people in some of their most difficult moments and figure out how I could connect. Now, I never knew how God was weaving that social work career and child welfare work into what would lead down paths of incredible connections. And I was working with some really broken people. I was working with some people who were really having some struggles that made me thank God for my struggles, but also gave me the compassion to say, Jesus, teach me what you want me to do with this. How do I love them through their difficult choices? How do I love this mom so that she can see how good she is, or that she can know that she's loved just as much as I'm loved? And how do I walk alongside these people? I came home one night to tell my parents that I had met an incredible man and I had started dating him. And now you have to know, I told you my dad is Sicilian, very, very Sicilian. And as he was sitting at the dinner table, I said, Dad, I met this really great guy. His name is Denny. And my dad said, mm-hmm. And I said, and he's 9 years older than me. And my dad just stopped twirling the pasta. It's like a flippin' TV show. Like, of course, we're eating pasta. And he's like, uh-huh. And I said, and he also has 2 children from his first marriage. My dad said, yep, you're going to have to leave that one with me. And I'll talk to you about this in a few days. And my mom's like, go, leave the table now, go. That was a lot better than I expected, go. And so, as you can see from this picture, we had my dad's blessing. We got married. And we were really excited to start our family together. Now, on my 3rd date, I shared with my husband, I will love your babies like my own, But God has put it on my heart that I wanted to be a Paralympic athlete and I want to be a mom. And so I don't recommend this on a third date, very awkward third date conversation, but I needed to know how quickly, I learned yesterday from the youth, they call this friend zoning. I needed to know how quickly I was going to friend zone this guy if he didn't want to have any more children. And so my husband said that, it would take a really special woman for me to have one more baby. But he agreed that, that is something that I could see. And so we continued dating and got married, and we're really excited. And as we got married, we started to decide to do some genetic testing. I have muscular dystrophy. We're not sure how I got it. My parents have done genetic testing. We were assured by the doctors that there was a 0% chance that we could pass this on to my children. And so we were so excited. And in 2016, we welcomed our beautiful baby boy, Corbin, to our family. This moment was so exciting. I was so excited to get to have Corbin next to me and to be celebrating that we were going to be bringing this beautiful baby boy home to our family. But this joy only lasted a second because that sneaky evil devil got in there and started putting awful thoughts in my head of what was I thinking? I can't be the best mom that Corbin deserves. I can't carry that 45-pound car seat. I'm not going to be able to bend down and put Corbin in the bath. How am I going to be the best mom? And I was filled with so much fear. And I remember going back to my faith and praying that Our Father and getting to the line, "Thy will be done," because I heard that story that my mom had shared so many times, and getting to the words, "Thy will be done," and still feeling scared, still feeling like I can't do this. And so I knew I needed to find my own way. It was okay that I was scared. It was okay that I would have to give this to God each and every day, but that I would figure out how we were going to do this. Corbin was just about 6 months old, and I was so excited to bring him to the swimming pool. And we had our matching bathing suits on. I know it's a little ridiculous. He had a bathing cap, because a 6-month-old needs a bathing cap. And he had his goggles. They also don't need goggles. But we were prepared. And I remember taking him to the water and getting to the pool. And at the pool that I brought him at, I had to squat down to put him in, to hold him on the side. And that grief hit me, that I don't actually have the muscle strength to put this boy in the water. My world, free from barriers, became such a barrier. And so I again would have that conversation with God of how am I going to get through this moment? Lucky for me, my mother-in-law was at the pool. Corbin actually hates the water, so he would scream bloody murder as my mother-in-law had to put him in the water until I got there and got to be the fun mom that could get him in the water. And so I had to use my sense of humor to get through a lot of these difficult moments, but we navigated it. And at 1 year old, when I went back to work and Corbin went to daycare, I really got that answer from God that things are going to be okay. And you're going to be the best mom that you can be. Because I showed up at daycare. Another mother was getting her son Liam out of the car, and we got to daycare, and she said, "Hi, I'm Stephanie." And she was one of those moms that had it all together. She looked great. I looked like a hot mess. We were okay. But Liam had a matching outfit on. Corbin still had scrambled eggs on his shirt, and I'm like, whatever, daycare's problem. And I got there, and she said, "I made homemade crayons for the kids for their first day of daycare." Shit. I am never going to be the very best mom because I am never going to be making homemade crayons. And God, with his incredible sense of humor, as I picked Corbin up at the end of the day and he was in the back of the car, Corbin was eating those crayons. And I thought, okay, we got this. And so then that knock came. For those of you that are parents in the room, that knock of, "You're not done." And I knew it was being laid on my heart by God that our family wasn't finished. And I wanted to have just one more baby. And I shared that with my husband. And my husband and I were talking with my family. And my dad looked at my husband and said, "We've never been able to tell her no. Let us know when you're pregnant." And so in 2019, we welcomed our second beautiful baby boy, Samson, to our family. Samson would teach us that Samson is going to do whatever Samson wants to do. Like when he wants to start breathing, then he will start breathing. Nobody's going to tell Samson what time or where he needs to be. He'll figure it out on his own. I pray every day for Samson's teachers, every single day. And so we were so excited. I got to have this beautiful baby boy joining our family and got to be so excited to bring him home and to get to feel the joy, knowing that I could do this. I could do this with my incredible support team. I can do this with the incredible people around me. And Samson was coming to a loving home with 3 other kids, so excited to welcome Samson in our home. We all know where we were when COVID hit and how our lives all changed very differently. For us, COVID was a bit different. I received a phone call from my specialist that said there was a medication that I could start taking and that I should get really stronger after this medication in just a few days. Now, the doctor said to my husband and I, you need to ensure you're done having children because you won't be able to get pregnant on this medication. Before he even finished this medication, my husband yelled, "We're done! We are done!" And so the doctor did exactly that. He sent the medication. I started to take the medication and instantly started to feel strength that I had never had. Living with the form of muscular dystrophy I have, it's very painful. And so the pain started to go away. I started to get strength in my fine motor skills that I hadn't had before. I started to be able to walk upstairs, not using the railings. I was able to put the kids in the bath, in the crib, all by myself. I played What Time Is It, Mr. Wolf, with the older kids at the park, and I actually caught them at lunchtime. They didn't like that. I was so happy. And so we continued to navigate this. My doctors were so impressed with how this medication was working. They had us travel down the 401 to Hamilton and started to do some of the muscle tests, and they were really excited. And so they said, we pull you off of the medication now, and we measure how long your body holds this. This is the treatment that we need to do, so we know how much medication to continue giving you. Makes sense? Stopped taking the medication, went home. In a couple weeks, started to feel that muscle weakness starting to come back. The pain really came back. The muscle spasms were awful. I called my doctor. I said, I got to get back on that medication. It's already starting to show that the weakness is coming. I started taking the medication, started to have different side effects than the first time that I took the medication. My back hurt. I had a lot of stomach issues with this medication. And so my doctor said, that's okay, it happens sometimes. Let's send you for some blood work. We will navigate this. I remember having conversations with God saying, I got to feel this. Don't take this away. Don't not let this medication work. It's so exciting that you have led these doctors to this incredible research. Please don't take this away. And so when the phone rang and my doctor said, it's not the medication making you sick, we all breathed a sigh of relief. And then my doctor, you know those specialists that don't have a lot of personality, they're like right to the line. So he started laughing, and I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. Why are you laughing? What is going on? And he said, where's your husband? I said, he's here. He said, put the phone on speaker. So I put the phone on speaker, and he goes, it's not the medication making her sick. Congratulations, you're having another baby. Very, very special lady. And so at that moment, I said, oh my gosh, okay. And so my husband said his own prayers. I'm still not quite sure what happened there. And we moved those parties like we all did, our birthday parties and our everything outside to the bottom of our driveway. We moved that gender reveal party to the bottom of the driveway, and I opened a box outside. And when that pink balloon came out of that box, I was so excited. Corbin at the time fell to the ground screaming because Team Blue lost, and he was not okay with that. But I was so excited because of the incredible treasure that I have of the relationship with my mom, that I was now going to get to have that with another little girl. And so we were so excited. And so this is that crazy picture we do now. You've been in labor twice, you're having another baby, you know you gotta go, it's time to get to the hospital because you gotta get there, you're in labor, and I'm like, wait, take that one last bump picture. I'm never ever gonna be pregnant again. And my husband goes, oh, I'm taking this last bump picture because you are never gonna be pregnant again. And so we laughed and we took the picture, and I kissed my beautiful little boys goodbye, and I said I would see you in 2 sleeps. Morgan was born on August 17th. Morgan's birth was perfect. I got to experience the joy of bringing a beautiful baby into our family and not hearing that evil devil say, what if you can't? It was a celebration, and I swear there were angels in the room when I got to see her beautiful face and my husband gleaming with joy and also thinking, oh my God, we have 5 kids, and how are we gonna do this? And we looked up at each other and we started to celebrate. But there was a moment Morgan's birth was perfect. There was a moment where I felt something is not quite right. A severe sepsis infection would leave me battling for my life with only a 10% chance of survival. I know, I see a lot of you going, are you kidding me? I know, and Ab taught me something really great. If you just clench your butt cheeks, it stops you from crying. So a 10% chance of survival, leave me battling for my life. My family was brought into the room 3 times with our incredible priest to read me my last rites, as we now had the biggest battle on our hand. Scientifically, medically, all doctors would give my family very little hope that I would survive. My mom would take to her greatest treasure. She talked to God. She knew the Holy Spirit, and she laid on the floor begging God and praying to God that she didn't have to be one of those moms. That my mom is an incredible bereavement specialist who specialized in parents that had lost children. And my mom knew the hurt that was coming if I didn't survive. And so my mom posted on Facebook, "Pray now, we're losing her." And what started to happen all around our community was candles started to get lit. Messages of prayers spread across our country, where my husband was receiving messages from monks in France saying, "We are praying for her." My family was told that Windsor had done all that they could do, and I would need to be transported to London with any hope of survival. They came in to say their final goodbyes, as there was a very, very slim chance that I would survive this trip. We traveled down the 401, and my parents actually beat the ambulance, my husband ahead of my parents. And when I arrived, the doctors were able to say to my parents and my husband, "We're cautiously optimistic. We have what we need here in London to help her start to survive." What happened was an incredible miracle of a doctor from Windsor jumping into the ambulance and doing everything he needed to do medically to get me to survive to London. Later, when I asked him, "What were you doing? What medical interventions did you do in that ambulance?" And he looked at me and he said, "Oh no, Danielle, I just prayed. I prayed the whole time that this would not be God's will, that you would survive and that you would get home to your family." And my very shy best friend jumped on Facebook Live and started a live chat where she said, every day at 8:30, I'm gonna come on here. Now this is that friend that doesn't ever like to be in the front of the class, ever like to be on the media. Anytime that we would be out and the media would be there, she would hide faster than I could ever imagine. Every night she would go on Facebook Live and start to say prayers. And every night all she did was read the Bible. And that prayer group has continued 4 years later with over 1,500 people still joining at 8:30 to pray. Now not just for me, but a list of over 250 people that have sent in prayer requests. And that amazing faith started to be rolling in that hospital. And as I started to continue to go through this healing process, I was in a medically induced coma, on life support for over 11 days. And when I finally could open my eyes, I remember, sorry I left that hospital picture up so long, I remember looking down at the breathing tube coming out of my mouth and going, well, okay, I've seen enough Grey's Anatomy to know this is not good, and how are we going to get through this? And I took a deep breath in, and I heard a click, and I breathed out, and I heard a click. And so I started breathing in, and I started counting longer and longer between each clicks, because I was a swimmer. I trained with a snorkel. I could do this. I could make these clicks go longer and longer, and I would be okay. And the only person I could talk to was God, because I couldn't actually talk. So I would lay there having conversations. And it's so interesting that the maple tree is one of our signs today, because one of the only things I could see without being able to move my body was just moving my eyes to this beautiful maple tree, this amazing Canada flag around the maple tree. And I'd watch the sun come up every morning, and I'd say, okay, here we are today. My goal is going to be to just move my finger. And God, don't leave me. Don't leave me because I'm really scared. This is really hard. I remember finally being able to see my husband and looking at him and him saying to me, we've waited so long to see your eyes, and you have no idea what's happening around our country. You have no idea how many people are praying for you, how many times I have been on my knees praying. And in that moment, in those words, I said, God has a plan. My husband was not raised Catholic. My husband would tell you he's one spiritual person, not maybe very religious. And my husband started to pray. My husband started to put holy water that we were given, holy oil, all over me. And my husband prayed the Our Father over me. And I thought, okay, God, maybe you had to use this just for this. And I remember that night, laying in that hospital bed, being terrified, and really having to say those words that I had heard so many times, you got to give it to God. What if I'm too scared to give it to God? And so I remember taking that deep breath in and thinking, I'm going to give this to God, but I don't like what the alternative of this may be. I'm still on life support. I can't communicate to anybody, and I'm laying in a dark hospital bed, and I start to pray the Our Father, and I get to the words, thy will be done. And for the first time in my life, I really had to let those words lead. And I said to God, I want to go home. I want to be a mom to my babies. But if it's not your will that I go home, that's okay. Because I know you will use this for a purpose. I know there will be pain, and I know there will be scared times and difficult moments, but there will be a purpose for this pain. So God, I trust you, but I'm not strong enough to do this without you. So right now I'm going to give it to you, but I'm also going to ask you to just hold on to me, to just carry me through these difficult moments. And slowly I started to get better and better. And slowly I was able to come off the life support vent. A respirologist came in and said to me, you know, Danielle, most people wake up on life support and we have to resedate them. You, cool as a cucumber, what were you doing? And I said, well, your life support machine sounds like a snorkel. So I was just clicking the snorkel in and out of breaths. And he looked at me and said, nobody works out on life support. Said to one of the young student doctors in the room, I think I just found your new research project, because I did. And so as I started to rebuild these muscles, I was living my greatest nightmare of living with muscular dystrophy and waiting for these muscles to break down. And now these muscles actually were broken down. And I would have to rebuild these one step at a time. One step led to 100 steps, to finally having an incredible doctor who we did invite to come here today, unfortunately was unable to, lean his back against my wall and say, Danielle, science is going to get you better. We got you. Science is going to fix this infection. And day by day, I would walk with this doctor, and we would start to talk more and more about my faith and about the people praying. And on October 18th, they sent me down for a CAT scan. And as I heard his big, heavy shoes walking down the hallway, he leaned his back against the wall, and he looked at me and he said, Danielle, your infection is completely gone, and you're going home. And science didn't do this. And I was so excited to get to hear him say those words. And just before I got to travel back to Windsor, I got to meet Morgan after being away from her from August 17th and being in the hospital for so long. Denny brought her down to London. London doctors felt I needed that one extra little push to get me through those next couple weeks before I was ready to travel down our 401. And I share this picture because it's the same feeling I had looking at those gold medals, looking down at those medals, at the bronze medal and the gold medals. And I remember looking at Morgan and saying, well, this isn't the way it was supposed to be, but man, are we going to give purpose to this pain, and are we going to do this together? And I was so excited to travel back down that 401 and get to finally see my boys and my husband again, where I'd spent some time in a rehab center. And in this picture, Corbin is whispering to me, "Mom, is this really real? I prayed so hard for you. I prayed so hard that you would come home." And then Corbin shared an incredible story that I don't get to share on many stages. Corbin said to me, "Mommy, you came to me and you sat at the edge of my bed and you told me your body was too sick and you had to go to heaven. And I looked at you, Mommy, and I prayed so hard, and I looked at the man that was standing with you and I said, please don't take her to heaven. And do you know what happened, Mommy? Anna, who is his grandma who was taking care of him, Anna said that morning that you opened your eyes. And I got to witness the incredible faith in just a 5-year-old at that moment. Stewards of Hope were his teachers. His incredible teachers held Corbin in the most amazing way. And when an ambulance would go by and my little guy would start to panic, Corbin's teacher would show him a picture. Look, Mommy's still at the rehab. Mommy's doing great. Mommy's coming home. The next time I got to see Corbin, he didn't tell me an incredible miracle story. He said, Mom, you really got to hurry up or you're going to miss Halloween. And so I thought, well, I've got my strict instructions. And so I walked home on October 31st to see my husband scrambling last minute to get those costumes put together. And in a wheelchair, I got to do trick-or-treating with Sam as our Sam the construction man, Corbin as a mummy, and we had an incredible Halloween together. Our gold medal moment for our family came on November 8th when we got to take our first family photo all together. I remember celebrating this photo, enjoying this moment, and at this moment I looked at my husband and said, I think it's time for a haircut. And so our journey continued to be one of getting home and healing and giving it to God each and every day and learning how to strive through these struggles and celebrate our successes. What we learned and what you were told in my introduction is that I was actually re-diagnosed later on in life. What happened through my medical coma and through all of the testing that they did was testing that they aren't able to usually do because a person's not really ever laying still for 23 days. So I gave them the gift of that where I would lay still, and they did a test that actually showed I had been misdiagnosed. I in fact didn't have muscular dystrophy, but I had spinal muscular atrophy. And I'll never forget the day that my doctor told me this. You actually have spinal muscular atrophy, Danielle. And my first thought was, what about my babies? Muscular dystrophy had a 0% chance of being passed on, but spinal muscular atrophy has a 50-50% chance of being passed on. And so as I started to get better, my husband started to say, you know what, Danielle, we're starting to see the same pattern. Samson started to fall a lot and lift his arms up, asking to be carried. And then Samson would be diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy. And then my beautiful baby girl started to follow the same train that I did, lifting her arms up, telling me that her legs hurt, and asking to be carried. And so Morgan would get tested and also test positive for spinal muscular atrophy. I would be lying with you if I didn't say, come on, God, we've had enough. Like seriously, we're just getting over this survival story, and now we're going with this. And I remember having these conversations with God of saying, how do I do this? How do I walk through? I know the hurt, and I know the pain and the fear that I've gone through living with this. How do I lead these two beautiful babies? And I remembered that moment in the hospital room where I said, God, I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to you so that you can tell me why this happened, so that you can tell me how this happened. And I am so filled with fear. And then I had this answer. Danielle, you know how to help their muscles when they hurt. When your mom broke down in so much tears saying to you, I wish I knew what to do, you know what to do. You know where to park the car so that it's easier for them to get out. You know how to have conversations with their teachers to say what they're going to need. Yes, this is just another hiccup. This is just another moment, but we're going to use this for good. How does God use these difficult, hard moments for good? Let me share with you how God uses this. I get asked to come and speak at When Faith Meets Pedagogy last year. Can you book it? Can you put it in your calendar? My team had just said to me, do not book any more speaking engagements without it going through us. This is getting crazy. We don't know where we're sending you. You're all over the place because it's coming in from everywhere. I said, okay. Ab called, can you do this? I said, yes, of course, I will do this. And now I'm in trouble over here, but I will do this. And so I spoke, and I agreed to come to this conference. I got to meet 1,400 incredible youth who came up individually on their own and said, I'm praying for your son and daughter. I'm praying for your family. I got to meet a woman who teaches in the Catholic school system. I need you to follow this story with me. I got to meet a woman who teaches in the Catholic school system who has a neuromuscular disorder called lipo. Lipo has been researched to be the one disease that we need that will help the treatment of spinal muscular atrophy. And she was here yesterday. She came up to me and said, I have lipo. And I looked at her and I said, what? She said, I have it. I've had it for a while. I've been too scared to go and do the biopsies. I've been too scared to do the blood work that I need to do. And I looked at her and I gave her a big hug and she said, I'll do what I need to do because I heard your story. I'll do what I need to do because I'll see Samson and Morgan's face each and every time. This is an extremely rare neuromuscular disorder. We don't have very many people in our world documented, and God brought us together. I know our classrooms and our schools are so challenging right now. I know we are asking you to show up and share your time, share your treasure, and share your talents. What I also know is that I am on this stage because of each and every one of you. Because of what you do each and every day in our education system allows me to send my kids to school with hope. Allows me that when Samson says, I'm going to be a firefighter, I get to say, yes, you are. When Samson said, I had a really hard day today at school because kids were making fun of me because I couldn't run the same way that they did. But you know what I did? I sat on the buddy bench and a friend came over and played with me right away. You do that. You share hope for us parents each and every day. In our own lives, God shows up in some crazy ways. I will continue to travel and share my story and share my purpose and share my pain because it allows us to connect. It allows us to talk to God. So my prayer for you at this conference is to take time to connect to each other before you collect from each other. To know on the hard days that there are so many of us praying for you. There are so many of us out there praying that you find that spark that brought you into teaching again. Praying that you find that hope so that when that difficult child is sitting in front of you, you don't see the behavior, you see the child who is simply not having the words yet to say thank you. But they will. They will say thank you in their own way. You will be some of the only people in their lives that teach them about their faith, that teach them that they belong here and that they are good. So thank you on the hard days for pushing through. And on those great days, celebrate your gold medal moments because we are all here together. And I am so honored to get to spend the rest of the day with you. I will be in the vendor area, so please come and connect. 3 things people said to me all the time when I was sick is 1, we prayed for you so much. 2, oh my goodness, we lit candles. And 3, you need to write a book. And so I wrote my book as a thank you letter to anyone that gets a chance to read it so that you may too find the gifts in your struggles. Thank you for showing up the way you do each and every day for our students. Have a great day. Thank you.
At this time, I invite Catherine Stevenson, WFMP Chair of the Board, to give thanks.
just by way of a little breather, that was a lot, and it was beautiful, and I had an opportunity to hear you yesterday as well, but by way of a bit of comic relief, I just can't get out Ab's words of wisdom about what to do when you feel that those tears are welling. So Danielle, I want to thank you. I was here yesterday to hear you speak to those 1,400 students, and I'll get emotional, but I think one of the things that I took away is that you talked about your struggle, and in our world, our young people are taught to anything that is painful, just find a way to take away that pain. And what you said to them was that message of hope, to give that pain to God and to ask God that our struggles have purpose. And you started this morning worried that the repetition of the story might not serve people's needs, but you said God gives you what you need from this story. So your story has become our shared story, and each of us will find that entry point. And in Scripture, God does a little think aloud and said, it is not good that man should be alone. We are called to be in relationship. So we will find those entry points so that your story will become ours. And we are so blessed to have your mother here with you to journey with us, and your story will become ours as well. So thank you so much. Thank you for your story and for sharing and for helping us to realize that when we encounter one another, we recognize God, and we need to take those moments to celebrate God and to recognize all the goodness that God gives to us. So thank you, and God bless.
Wow, this has been such an incredible start to the morning, and there is so much more to come. We want to take some time to invite you to visit the vendors fair. We encourage you, in your bag, there's a passport. We encourage you to get that stamped by the vendors and completed passports. You have the opportunity to win an iPad mini. Also, Danielle mentioned she will be in the vendors fair signing books at 9:45 if you'd like to come after this session. There's also a new portion of the conference. We've created a sacred space. And if you go to the very bottom of the main staircase in the Dixon room, there's a wonderful opportunity for a quiet prayer and reflection. And we actually have some musical guests from Michael Power Secondary School down there this morning. Period A sessions do begin at 10:20, and then we invite you to join us back at 11:30 in this main ballroom for the celebration of the Eucharist, and it will begin promptly at 11:30. Enjoy the rest of your morning.